Seems legit.
Hello my legitimates, welcome back to my channel for another video. Today we have made the Sandra saddlebag by Swoon Patterns, and I have used the Inklings and the Kraken's Arctic design. I actually thought this was really cute for this. And then I've used a Blue Sail Pacifica standard vinyl. So the magnet here actually comes down and then it opens out. This front is like it's got little darts here at my finger. So it sits out a little bit, and then we've got a zipper pocket on the inside. Please make note that I forget to put this in. I do it later, but I will put up a little note underneath with words to make sure that you put it in the right spot so you don't have to unpick like me. But if you would like to see how to make this, why don't you stick? There we go. If you would like to see how this is made, please stay tuned. Alrighty, so let me just move that out of the way so we can get started. I've got all my hardware here. And I've got all the pattern pieces in here as well, just because. Now, I have used fusible fleece on this, not bag foam, because the pattern says so, and I am going to agree with the pattern. I also have the pattern pieces here because it's got the placement for your rivets, magnets. I'm going to use rivet magnets because I'm obsessed, but you can use whatever you like. And I'm going to start with this piece. Now, with things like this with curves, I tend to only cut one side and then use a scrap for the other side. It does potentially waste like a little bit of vinyl, but I do find that I don't have to then go back and fussy cut around things. Now, if you're not using a rivet magnet, you need to install your magnet now. I'm using rivet magnets because I'm obsessed. And even though I have now closed down my store, I am going to put a link to buy rivet magnets down below. Most of the other stuff you can get from like any old bag supplier, but obviously I have convinced a lot of you to get rivet magnets and I don't want you to feel cheated. So, stick them together. I am on a 4 stitch length and I'm going to start up here in the corner, and then I'm just going to stitch, back stitch. I think I've got my tension right, but I guess we're ultimately going to find out soon. Now this edge is going to be into a seam, so we don't need to worry about that one. Oh, beautiful stitching. So, oh, it just got really hot in here. I'm going to now trim around this. So I find this the easiest way to do it. If you've got a like cutting machine, like a Cricut or a Scan and Cut, you can definitely cut these out with that. That would make it easier. I personally have not had much luck cutting vinyl on my cutting machine. Admittedly, it is quite a few models old. I'm sure they do better now, but my attempt at it sucked, to put it simply. So I cut them by hand, is the moral of this story. So I am going to line this up on here, and we're just going to use some clips to clip it on so it doesn't shift. And then I am going to punch through all of it, right where the magnet says to be, like that. And on this piece, I want the male, which is the thinner, sticky outy bit. And we'll need that. And I have here, this is probably an overkill, but I broke my last box. It also gives me a chance to buy more fancy dies because I am die obsessed. I know it, you know it. I've made peace with it. So I'm just going to grab, I can tell by looking at them, but if you can't do that, maybe label everything so that you know what's going on. Grab both of these. And then, so this one sticks out, so this one needs to stick in. If you struggle, you can literally put them together and then put it in the machine. Whatever suits you best. I like both sides stitching, actually. So I'm just going to push it in, clip it on. I like to clip them together, but you can also put the rivet up into the rivet holder here and then squish it down. So now I've got a cute little accent and I have my magnet installed. I'm now going to take this one out and put the other one in because we will need the other one in a minute. I'm a bit not in order at the moment. I'm actually moving house in 11 days from right now. And because of that, my house is in a little bit of shambles, I won't lie. So I'm now grabbing the flap because we're going to put the other magnet on the flat piece. So I have used this fabric on all main pieces and then just put vinyl in the gusset because I wanted this fabric to be the feature because it's adorable. So again, I'm going to clip this on here like so. And then we're going to punch the hole where the hole is, like that. Simple enough, quite effective. You can also measure it. You don't have to use the pattern pieces. I'm not going to install it yet though. That's just my placement hole. Because I've got rivet magnets, I need to put it through both layers. But I just wanted to have the hole there because I do. Because we're about to take off seam allowance and that's all important too. So, flat piece, right sides together, back to a joining stitch length. So for me is 2.5. And the lining is the softer piece of fabric of the two. So I'm going to put it on the bottom and then I'm going to just stitch around. Sew at whatever speed you are comfortable with. I'm kind of using this finger here, not that you can see it, as a bit of a guide for the fabric so it stays at the seam that I want it to. I really miss my rivet, my magnet. I don't know if my backing's sticky enough, but we can try. I had to take everything off when I painted it. I actually didn't plan on fully painting it. I was just going to paint this area, but apparently I bought the wrong shade of green or the cans didn't match up or whatever it was. And so I repainted the whole thing. It meant a day less of sewing, but that was all right because I am trying to move house and so I sorted some stuff out instead. I like zigzag scissors. It's going to allow this curve to be a lot better. So that's what I'm doing. I'm now going to turn it through the right way and I want to top stitch all of the flap. Up to a 4 stitch length. I want to fold this edge all the way over so that it's neat on the edge, and then I'm going to stitch with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now if you're new to sewing and right on the edge scares you a little bit too much or you think you're going to fall off, just do a 1/4 inch. It's not really that much difference. It does still look cute. I did a 1/4 inch seam allowance on a bag the other day and it still looked great just the way it was. And I did that because the vinyl was so thick, I thought I might fall off the edge. And so I did a 1/4 inch. And if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't notice. And it still looked fabulous. And that's all we really care about, to be honest. I'm going to back stitch and then trim off those tails. Now, I can see the hole nice and easy, but I do still need to re-punch it through all the layers. You could have also just put a mark there and punched the hole later. I'm not the boss of you, so you do it however you like. Now, here's one of those things. Because it's the flat piece, you need to put the magnet on the outside so that when the piece comes up, it's going to be able to actually hold it closed like this. So this is how the bag works. So please think about that when you're installing it. Normally, we put flaps, we do it the other way. So I just want to make a point to say that out loud. Take 10 seconds to make sure you put it on the right way. 9 out of 10 times you will lift up the whole thing because it is magnetic. That's okay. Okay. I like to put these away as I go, and I'm going to just put the normal rivet in. also going to close that so they don't go everywhere. I can sort them out, but it's an unnecessary amount of time to do so. So that's our flap done and our cool little piece done. You can stick them together if you don't want to lose the little piece. Let's move on to some more of the bag. What have we got? So I have cut out one of my fancy strap connectors and I have put base stabilizer down the center. So it's about, I think I cut it at 3/4 of an inch, even though this is a 1 inch part, just because I want it to go almost all the way to the edge, but not so it's seen. And then I'm going to grab my gusset piece, which I have also put fusible fleece onto. If you don't have a fusible version, just sew it into, like top stitch it down with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so you won't see the stitches, but it will also hold it in place for you. Another option you could do is you could quilt along here to make it look extra cool. I've only just thought of that now, otherwise I probably would have done that. So I'm going to put my rectangle ring on. Now if you want to do D-rings you can, it just means you will need clips, swivel clips as well, so it's a little bit more hardware. But you can do that any way you like. I'm just going to do the rectangle rings and then attach the strap so it's not removable. Sometimes it does look better with extra hardware. I do like the look of swivel clips. And sometimes I just don't want to do them. And apparently today is one of those days. So I'm going to put a whole bunch of 1/4 inch double-sided tape. You can also use 1/2 inch. I have a lot of rolls. This is still the older stuff. This is not the Garner Sewing Room terrible stuff. Rippable, because terrible sounds like terrible. And it is not terrible, it is fantastic. Rippable. Right, and then we're going to put that on. And then we're just going to peel off the 2 center ones. Like that. Put it in the bin, because I hate mess. Even though don't look at my house right now because it's pretty messy. And then I'm just going to fold that over and stick it, and that's what it's going to look like. I'm going to do both. Throw that out, bend it over, stick it. If you want to, you can add a clip to the one we're not about to put onto our piece. And then we need a ruler. And we're going to line it up in the middle. Now I do this with points on here. We also might want to take off the other backing pieces. This is going to help us hold it in place before I stitch it down. And I am still on a 4 stitch length. But if you're not, please check on that. So that's going to go there. This also would have been cute, a different color. Probably should have done that, but too late now. And so I am going to start here. And I'm just going to do a hole back. And then over all the layers like so. Put it down. Now because it's such a tight curve, you need to kind of move this around quite quickly. Like so, and then trim off your tails. So that's one end. Let's do the other end. Repeat myself again. So line it up in the center. Use a ruler to find your center the easiest way possible. Take off that clip because it is distorting my lining upness. Yes, I'm aware that's not really a word. Okay. Clip and then down. And around, and then back stitch when you get back to the start. Also contrasting stitching would also look really, really nice. But they are now on. I'm going to bend them down so they stay out of my way. Then I need to find the center, like we always do. And I'm doing these pieces first because I always like to get rid of like small pieces. Minimize the amount that I've got going on. So that is the center of that done. And now we need our slip pocket. Now again, you need the pattern piece because we need to know this part. So I'm going to joining stitch length, which is 2.5. I'm going to line up that top straight edge and I'm going to put the softer side of the two underneath because that's just what I do. Now with this top bit here, you can do any seam allowance you want. The bigger the seam allowance, the smaller the pocket. And a thread is stuck. Don't worry about that. It's just looped around the foot. It doesn't affect it. I usually just leave it there. Right. So then we're going to fold this over. Another cool thing you could do here, instead of doing it this way, is you could have put a piece of vinyl over the edge and made it like an accent if you wanted to. I mean, there's a lot of options. Okay, what I want to do is I want to make sure that these pieces stay together. So I'm actually going to baste all the way around. And I'm going to run out of thread soon. I can hear it, but that's all right. This wasn't a full bobbin to begin with, and I knew that when I started. So now what we want to do is we want to mark with something erasable preferably. So I'm going to use this pen here, and I want to mark here and here, and then flip it over and mark there and there. I need to make bigger marks on this side because I can't really see them. That's better. Really scribble it on there. This is all still within the seam allowance, so it doesn't matter anyway, but I did also use an erasable pen in case it wasn't. So you can see now I've got some half decent marks. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put those two marks together like that, and sew. Up like that. See how it gives us a little dart now? We're going to do the same to the other side. So I'm going to join up those marks. Sounds like I've run out of bobbin thread. I have. Let's do another bobbin. Right, we now have a new bobbin. And so we just have to fold this back to itself like that, and then stitch, back stitch slowly because it is a new bobbin, and knowing my luck, something's going to go wrong. It's usually the way of it. And then trim off all the tails you can see, of which there are a few. And so now it should look like this. We're going to take one of our main panels, and then theoretically it should fit if you've done everything correctly, but just on the off chance that it doesn't for whatever reason, we are going to find the center, because centers are just easier for everything. We're also going to need the center later when we put our other piece on, so that's fine too. Center. Line up the centers and then clip it down with some clips. There. Like that. And then, if you've done everything correctly, which it does look like I have, all the edges line up. Ta-da! Whoopsies. So there's one. And then up from the other way. So far so good. The fact that that bit fits means I did it right. If you find that it's not fitting, you either need to do more or less of a seam allowance, and that will just be dependent on which way. Like if it's too small, open these up and have less of a seam allowance. If this is too big and gapes in the corners, go back and stitch it a little bit more. It's pretty much sums that up. Alright, so now I'm going to top stitch this down so it becomes one piece. So I'm going to stitch and I'm going to back stitch. And then after I finish this pocket, I'm actually going to jump to the strap because I don't want to have joins in my thread. So I'm just sewing that at 1/8 of an inch so it's all within the seam allowance. And so now you've just got a little bit of a pocket that sits out a little bit. It just means you can fit a little bit more in it. That's all. Okay, up to a 4 stitch length for my strap. Where is my strap? Here it is. I'm like, I know I cut it. We are going to need 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch double-sided tape. Stick it down the center. Like so. I'm just going to move that out of the way. I always prefer to have this as one continuous piece. Now, if you can't eyeball the center like I am, you can just draw a line and then put the tape over the line. That will work just as well. Hang my tape back up. Now, when I squish this in, sorry, I'm just scratching my eye. You can't see that. That's why I'm explaining it to you. I'm going to peel off just a section. And then I'm going to bring this together, in and down. And I want to leave the tiniest of gaps. And you might be like, why? And I'll show you why in a minute. So you just want to leave like a smidgeny little gap in between, so that when we fold it over in half again, like this seam isn't super chunky and impossible to stitch. So we're just leaving a really small gap. And then pull off a bit, remove my piece of hair that was there, and just push down and together. So this is where your 3/4 inch tape would actually be better than the 1/2 inch I'm currently using. I just don't have one next to me, because it would grip it better. Alright, we're going to move along. I'm going to push that down the table, squish, and then I tend to go backwards. I don't know why I find that easier, I just do. I always find going forwards way more tricky. So squish with a gap and then back. I just dropped my cigarette lighter if you're wondering what that noise was. I knocked it off with the other end of the tape. Then when we get closer to the end, we can pull the whole thing off. I just never pull it all off because it tends to give me grief, and I tend to stick it to things like the table or fluff or a bobbin. I've done that before. So that's why I now pull the backing off from the double-sided tape in sections. Right, stick it together. Again with a bit of a gap. All right, now that that's done, I'm actually just going to take this and fold it in half, and I'm going to start at the open edge side, and I'm actually just going to fold it and stitch it as I go. Now this way is not for everyone, and I do understand that, but it will ultimately be quicker if you can learn to do it this way than have to put all the clips on first. And because of that little gap, can you see how easily this is folding over for me? Because I can feel it and it's awesome. It's not trying to fight me. It's not trying to spring up. I did just knock the camera, so I apologize for that. Alright, we just fold it in half, cruise down the end. I'm not in a hurry, because this is quicker than having to clip it. So you just have to make sure you leave that tiny little gap, and you're good to go. Now I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch from the edge, but you can stitch a full 1/4 if that's your thing, although I do recommend more of the 1/8. And I'm going to grab it, I'm going to swivel it, I'm going to jump to the other side, I'm going to stitch, and I'm going to back stitch with the needle up. If you try and do it with the needle forward, I have snapped needles like that before. And then this side should be much more smooth because I'm not trying to line anything up this time. I'm mainly going slow so I don't knock the camera. But also slow and steady wins the race. You will most likely get a straighter line if you're like consistent in your speed. Get to the end, backstitch. Now this is the Pacifica vinyl, so I can stitch in both directions with this. If you're using a lighter weight vinyl, my suggestion would be to not do that. Alright, and then trim off the little jump stitches at the other end, and that's your strap done. Now I did it now purely so I don't have dodgy bobbin thread going on, and I didn't want to have a join in my strap. Set that aside. Now we can grab this. We'll go back to this now. So I've already found the center here, and I already found the center here, so we're going to join the centers. And we're going to make all of the clips face the gusset piece, like we always do, but in case you've never watched one of my videos before, I am going to forever repeat myself. You'll get an earworm. Find the center, join it from the center out and then from the top down. We always do the curvy bit last because depending on the pattern, it might need to be eased in. Different patterns do it different ways. I think even my patterns do it different ways. Alright, so we want lots of clips on the curve so it doesn't shift and do something naughty like that. And then we'll come up to the other side, line it up here. Alright, join it up, clip it down, lots of clips so it doesn't shift while I'm trying to stitch it, because it will try. Even though I've only used fusible fleece and not foam, it will still try. Alright, so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to stitch, and I'm going to back stitch like I always do. Now this is not that thick, even though this is the one with the pocket, because it's fleece. If you wanted to do foam and make the bag even more firm, I would suggest making the foam stop within the seam allowance so that you don't have to stitch through it, and then it makes it domestic friendly, and it would actually make it less thick than this. Ta-da! So before I go cutting, I want to have a look on the inside and check and make sure there's no pinching anywhere. Alright, so you just turn it out. Check on your gusset. Now I thought there was a pinch here because there was a like a ripple, but there's actually not. Sometimes it likes to trick you. That's why it is always better to turn it out if possible. Alright, now let's attach the other side. So the other side is just plain. If you wanted to, you could add a zipper pocket. I'm going to put my zipper pocket on the inside. You could add 2 zipper pockets. You could put another slip pocket. You could put a flat slip pocket. So one's raised and one's flat. I mean, there's lots of options. I've decided I like to start rattling off all the ideas in my head to you because you might like one. You'll never hear it if I don't voice it out loud. Okay, so other side. Again, I'm going to go to that center point, line it up, make the clips face the gusset. Clip. Now, because I've never made this anymore, I currently don't have any insights into if the fleece will be enough, because even though the pattern didn't look very big, the picture on the front of this pattern is deceptive. This is quite a large bag. Not that I dislike it, I actually really like it. I might even bring it into my like regular repertoire. So far it's all pretty easy. The hardest bit would have been those darts in the slip pocket. But if you decide that you don't like that, all you do is you use your main panel and take a chunk off the top, and then that can be a slip pocket. That's if you don't like the look. I kind of like the chunkiness of the bottom. It allows to fit more in the pocket. Sometimes I find slip pockets not as useful because they really don't fit very much, whereas this would. So anyway, now we're going to sit it gusset side up, and I'm going to constantly be pushing this away towards the center so that I can sew where I want to sew without being annoyed by it. Also, fun fact, as you're watching this, I am probably moving house again, but this will be the last time, I promise. Alright, and backstitch. So again, you want to check it for any pinching. It's fine. Then I'm going to take my zigzag scissors and go to town. Now, if you don't have zigzag scissors, you can just use your normal ones. My zigzag scissors seem to only like chunky stuff. They're a bit too blunt for just like lining layers. Oof. I mean, they're getting blunt now anyway. I have to resharpen them. The only way I've seen to sharpen these is to fold over aluminium foil and cut into it, and it's supposed to make them sharper. So hopefully I'll remember after this video and I can go and do that. Now, this one's going to be thicker because it's got that slip pocket. It might be too thick for your hand, in which case go just get your normal scissors. Yeah, no, it's too thick because that's where the dart is. Just get my normal scissors, hack away. I'm not being too neat about this. The reason we take this off is because the lining will then fit nicer into the bag. You can also do a slightly larger seam allowance on your lining pieces, even though they're all the same. If you do just like a smidgeny little bit, like 1/8 of an inch maybe, bigger seam allowance for your lining, it will sit in smoother. But also cut this. All right, so that's the outside basically done. Let's move on to our linings. So there's not a lot for the lining. We've got a front, a back, a gusset, and a zipper pocket. I'm just going to do a Tory pocket for this. But if you prefer pockets with facings, you can 100% go and do that. I'm also just going to fold it. Makes me happy to fold it. Sometimes, if I remember, I even iron the fold. I don't always remember though. Alright, so we're going to still need the center of this anyway, which is there. And we'll need this one. Which is there. And I need the center of the gusset piece. Obviously not right yet because I still have to install the zipper, but it's always just better to do it while I'm doing it. And then I don't have to remember later, because now all the pieces have the center found a little bit quicker. So, open up one of these. And so for anyone that doesn't know, the Tory pocket piece is 8 by 12 inches. And it fits in here just fine. Just fine. Fine enough. So I'm going to start in the corner and I'm going to stitch the 2 long lines that I've drawn. The short lines are there to show you where to stop. You don't have to draw those short lines if it's confusing you or you don't like them, but I personally find them quite helpful because it's a nice clear line on where to stop sewing. As opposed to just stopping the line dead, you can actually see that it's going to be even and stuff. I mean, each to their own, but I like to do it. It's not even a whole second longer that it takes. Alright, grab my little green scissors. These are a $4 Bunnings job. I do prefer the square end ones, which were the red ones, but they don't seem to sell them anymore, which is so sad. Because those square ended ones in green would be like a dream pair of scissors. But that's alright. These are still good. I just find that the tip is not as sharp as the other ones. These are brand new. And the tips, so see when I get to the end how it doesn't cut? So I just have to use further back. But they are still good scissors. They go alright. Now I'm going to go and iron this pocket through to make sure it's lovely and flat, and then we'll install the zip. So I have ironed that. It also just occurred to me that I forgot to sew this part in. We'll fix that in a second. We're going to do this first. So I'm using my little hinge tectonic zipper pull. I have a bunch of, I actually don't have as many of these left as I thought I did after I closed the shop, but that's alright. I've still got a few so I can play with them. So I'm going to lay that over the zip and then pop this over like that. Move my clips out of the way. And I'm on a 2.5 stitch length and I'm just going to top stitch around the zipper. Over the zipper end. Now only sew over it if you use nylon zip. Don't sew over metal zips, you'll just snap a needle. You've got to like cut the teeth out and stuff. Which is mainly why I don't use them, because I can't be bothered. And I know that sounds lazy of me, and it probably is, and yet that's where I stand on the matter. I like nylon tape. You can get it with a metal look. Like this looks like it's got metal silver teeth, except it's not. It's just easier. And I am okay with that. And backstitch. I also managed to start on a darker part, so you can't even see the back stitching, which makes it even better. So even if you have like a close-up look, see how you can barely see the back stitch because it's on the dark part. Now, I'm just going to fold this zipper pocket down. We're going to turn the bag through here. So I'm only going to stitch the sides. This bag would also be super cute with piping. I am recently obsessed with piping. I can feel some more of these in my future. They're pretty quick and easy. And even though this has taken me many hours in the day, the actual sewing part hasn't. It's just I've been doing other things every time I hit pause on the camera. So I'm just going to open that to make my life easier. Then, now don't do this if you're not confident intermediate sewer, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to hold these together and stitch. Then I come and mark up that center part, pull all this out so it lines up, and then just continue sewing around. Now, I don't recommend this if you're new to sewing. Use clips like I did on the outside. But I mean, my fingers are basically bean clips, right? I'm just holding it around the curve and done. Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend that if you're a beginner sewer. But that, if you're intermediate, try it because it's amazing, and it was quicker because I didn't have to pin anything. No, we still want to do it gusset side up though. Don't try and do it the other way. It won't work, I promise. It'd be way harder to do it the other way. You should listen to me. Occasionally I know some stuff. So if you're gonna do this, you want to have very good control of like your fingers and stuff so you don't get them in the way. Line up the center. Lay it all down. Again, line up the edge. And edge. And around we go. Like that. Now, trim off the tails. I'm just going to use some normal scissors. These are loose. And I'm just going to trim off the excess. Like that. And that's just going to, again, help the bag sit better within the seams when we put them up against each other. If you leave this in, it usually makes your seam, like your lining, look like it doesn't fit properly and it won't sit snugly. This is not my scissors blunt. I don't know if you just saw that. That's just because they're loose, and every time I tighten them, they just become loose again, and it's slowly driving me insane. My child loosened them, and now I can't get them back to tight. I don't know. Whatever. All right. Turn this one right sides out. Now that you've finished sewing the gussets on, you can open the zip all the way if you need to. Okay, now we need to go and fix my mistake of putting this in. You need to decide if you want your slip pocket on the front or the back, because that will determine where we're going to put this. I am going to have it on the front so that the flap goes over it. So now I just need to unpick just a little section. Big enough, slightly bigger, sorry, than how wide this is. So you just want to make it a little bit bigger so that you can slot it in easily. And then I'm just going to pull out those threads because I've snipped them all, and now it should open like that. Ta-da! So we need this. We want the magnet part to be against the pocket, like so. So it's in this way. And then I can just slot it back in. I should also probably make sure that's definitely in the center. And then I'm just going to stitch that little bit shut. It's not the end of the world that I forgot it. That's my own fault for attaching it to the other piece of the bag. Shouldn't have done that. It was actually not as helpful as I thought it was going to be. So then I'm just going to sew across there. I'm going to come back and I'm going to sew another line just along that bit. That's just going to reinforce that, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And so then you can see that it just sits there. All right. So this is the front. This is the back. I want to take my flap and put right sides together on the back. And I'm going to clip that in. So I'm going to start here, work my way along. We're going to use lots of clips for this because I do not want it to shift while I am sewing. And this is going to have some more layers in a second, but we all know I like to clip one layer at a time. So I'm also going to put my zipper pocket at the back because the slip pocket's at the front. So I'm going to slot that in right sides together. And I'm going to start with this short end and line up the seam allowances. Like that. Then I'm going to do the other short side. Like that. 1 and 2. Then I can add this into the clips here. And now I probably don't need that many clips. I'm doing it because I feel like it. So now it's all clipped together. So I'm going to slot under here, take off one of the clips so I can get under, and then stitch. So we're going to stitch. Oh, I'm going to back stitch. You don't actually have to back stitch because you will stitch through those original stitches again because we're going all the way around. So that's actually your choice if you want to back stitch. But I recommend it so that you always remember to do it. It's a good habit to be in, honestly. Continue to bring the bag around. We do it in small sections. It won't look like it's a straight line when it's going under the needle. It's going to look like it's curved all the time. But we know the truth, so it's fine. Just go with it. And then back stitch. Now, if you didn't back stitch at the start, make sure you go through at least 3 of the original stitches before you then back stitch. I've got a whole chunk of it because it can't hurt. Now, oh look, I caught that, but that's all right. I can actually just cut that because it's the seam allowance part of the pocket. I have a bad habit of doing that a lot, actually. So I'm going to grab the bottom and I'm just going to push it in and turn it into a puppet. You should always make sure it's a puppet that is movable, because it means you've got a big enough handful. If you can't make it puppet, you haven't grabbed enough. Of course, this is going to be a little bit tricky. So I'm now just taking the zipper pocket and trying to engulf the whole bag with the zipper pocket. I'm not even trying to push it through at this point. I'm just trying to make sure that that fabric goes all the way over as much of the bag as possible. Because if you can get it to this point, it tends to just fall through after that. So we're going to grab a piece and I'm going to gently tug on it. We don't want to tug as hard as humanly possible. That is how you break things. So we're just going to grab a bit of something and gently ease it out. That's a gusset there because I can see the clip. You can also, if you prefer, grab the flap first. So this part here is the flap. So pull the flap out. That will make everything else less bulky. And then boom, out through it comes. Now I know that doesn't look very bag-like at the moment. So I'm going to put my hand in. I'm just making a fist and rolling around all the edges. Then I want to grab my, that is a pen. My flute cleaner, which is my bag turner. And I'm just going to push it along all those seams. Now, if you did piping, these seams are probably sitting wonderfully right now. It's another perk of the piping. All right, you want to run it all the way along all of your seams. And this now looks more like a bag. Yay! I'm going to take the pocket, tuck in that raw edge, pull tight, and then if you want to, you can add some clips, or you can not. It's entirely up to you. And I'm just going to run very, very close to that edge and trim off those tails. Tuck the pocket in. It's a lot of checker, I am aware of that. Alright, now up to a size 4 stitch length, I'm going to move my clips and basically everything out of the way so I don't knock it off the table. And I always, for this, like to start on the flap. So I'm going to push the lining down, pop it under, and then I'm going to stitch. Now I didn't back stitch this time because I'm going to go all the way around. So I want to pull on the outside and the lining to make sure that it's all right where I want it to be. Now, if I made this bag in all vinyl, you might want to get your pliers and squish all of the, where the seams kind of interject into something. Right, and I'm just going to hold it with my hands. I know you can't see because of the flap. I'm just holding it with my hands, and I'm chop stitching 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Now you can do a quarter, especially if you've done this in like a leather. You might want to do a full quarter because it's going to be easier. But that is ultimately up to you. I also have a sneaking suspicion I'm about to run out of bobbin thread, which is going to suck. We might just make it. I really hope we do. Also, make sure that your hardware is pointing down, away from where you're trying to stitch, so you don't accidentally stitch through it. So then I'm going to stitch through 3, back stitch, and done. Trim all of that. We don't want it to be messy. We want it to be discreet and fabulous. That is what we're aiming for. Then you can push the lining in, and then the flap comes over, and then this bit clips on like that. Oh, it's pretty cute. It is quite a softer bag because of the fusible fleece. I think fleece for the front and back main paddles, and maybe foam in the gusset might be best. Alright, now that the bag is pretty much done, we need to attach our strap. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my strap adjuster and feed this up and down and around that middle bit. Now, if you need to, grab your pliers and squish it. That's if you need to. You might not need to. And I'm going to put 2 rivets in this. I'm also going to just move the bag aside. So I'm going to put 1 there and 1 there. And 2 rivets is just going to make it a little bit more sturdy because it is a bigger bag and you can definitely fit quite a lot. They are different sizes. What is going on? I did not buy different sizes. Occasionally you get one that's just a little bit different. See, again, a little bit different. Alright, so there's those 2 squished on. I'm just going to grab the rivet press and squish them down. So now we grab the bag, and I'm going to have it facing me, and I'm going to go down the right side and through, and then up through this. Oh, let's not spill them everywhere. Really don't want to deal with that today. Up, down the other side. And then you want to pull on it to make sure that there's no twists, because I'd hate to see twists. And then we're going to go through this side, and I'm going to put 2 rivets again. I also want to grab some scissors and just clean up this end so it's schmick like that. You can put a strap end on if you want to. Each to their own. I am going to squish there and squish there. Oh, there is sun reflecting directly up into my eyes where I'm standing. It's not the most pleasant thing, I can promise you that. Alright, and then I'm going to grab 2 caps and squish the caps on by hand. I always like to do them by hand. You can make, if you've got the perfect rivet die for your rivets, you can put it in the top and it will do it for you. I like it this way though, because even when I've done it the other way, it's never 100%, and sometimes I destroy some stuff. Alright, and that is now the strap. Now, it's nice and chunky. This would be perfect for like a heavy duty. It's a heavy duty strap for sure. I definitely feel like I want a little bit more interfacing in the gusset, but that's turned out adorable, minus that little random thread there. And let me just show you this. I'll push this in properly. See how the lining's not gaping? Because we took off all that seam allowance, so it's not pushing against it and fighting you. And then you've got your slip pocket in the front, and then the flap will help hold stuff in the slip pocket that you've done. I think that came out really, really cool. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining me on this tutorial. And please like the video if you did in fact enjoy yourself. And make sure you subscribe to my channel to see when all future videos come in. Okay, bye.